This feels so weird. I haven't recorded in such a long time. What's up, Jake followers? I know you're probably wondering like, oh my god, who is this? I don't remember subscribing. Wait. My name is Karu. Welcome to my channel. I'm here to ease your questions, your burning questions, and tell you exactly where I've been. So welcome to the video. And if it looks like I'm looking down, I'm reading notes because I'm not gonna remember all of this. And I just wanted to make this as like transparent as possible. Now in this PowerPoint, I will be discussing different topics as they pertain to different categories of my life. These topics are as follows: jobs and morality, mental health, imposter syndrome, deviation from routine, and then how I will be handling things on henceforth. A couple more things to note here. I will not be using any of the real names of the companies that I've worked for because I don't want to be sued. Also keep in mind that these are my own experiences. I kind of respect at least one of these companies. And two very important things to note here at the end. First of all, I am soft and I am baby. So let's begin. Chapter 1, section 1 of where I've been. Work. Riveting. I know. I've been working full time. Now there are a couple pros and cons to this. Pros: I have more money. I was working from home, I had extra money that I didn't have to spend on gas, I had a structured routine, and that's really all it provided for me, if I'm gonna be honest. And we have the cons, which I had no free time, I was really burnt out, and I had a lot of performance anxiety. It was also very isolated. Needless to say, it sucked. But to provide a bit more context, I made a previous video talking about how I hated customer service. I stated in that video that I was working for an airline, and literally like a week later I interviewed with another company and they ended up offering me for a position. However, there were pros and cons to working both of these jobs. For example, job number 1, I could not request time off in advance. There was mandatory overtime on days off. I did not make enough money, and I had angry customers yelling at me for 10 hours straight. Just to go back to the preface, as we stated earlier, you know, points 4 and 5, actually I think they were 3 and 4, but I am soft and I am baby, so that really played a very crucial point here. And it also gave me crippling anxiety anytime I went to go clock in. With all this in mind, I was already contemplating leaving the airline job in general. I hated it. I hated being there. I hated being in a predicament where I wanted to help people so badly and I couldn't. You know, like everyone has their own reasons for flying. Sometimes it could be something like vacation, but it could also be an emergency. It was extremely stressful, especially since I was working there around when the hurricane hit last year. People were emotional and not always the nicest, obviously. I was also not a fan of being berated for 10 hours straight. I don't know, some people are into that. Not really my thing. Again, soft, you get the rest. I was also not a fan of like not having the flexibility to realistically do what I wanted. For example, I was getting these free standby flights, but the company was not paying me enough to utilize them. And because of the mandatory overtime, I didn't really have the time to go ahead and utilize that either. So it kind of felt like empty promises. I remember getting to orientation and being so excited and relieved to start this new journey with a company that was well known and respected, and honestly for the training process it was great. It was fire. I loved it. I really enjoyed, you know, the sense of unity that we all got. They all got us really excited about the job, everything that we're going to be doing, and then I got out on the floor. My work goers, you know how that goes. The training part's always good. It feels like it always is, at least for me. Once I started working there, like on the floor, like it was miserable. Not to mention like a few people will contact me, but like very select few, and even then they weren't really contacting me to check on me. They wanted to check on these flight benefits that I got. You know, that aspect also applied for job number 2, but we'll get there soon. Actually, we'll get there now, because that brings us to job number 2. There was a couple of pros to this job that made it seem better than the last. For example, it was about like a $4 pay raise, which I was doing the exact same thing before a different mode of transportation. They told us that it was easy to travel with the job. We had set hours for vacation each year, and we could accrue unlimited PTO, and the hours were better as well. So like, what's not to love, right? Well, this time I could not request off time in advance. They would only approve about 50 to 100 of like us per pay period, And despite mass hiring about 300 of us, that meant that like if you wanted to request a day off, you would have to do it in like 4 months in advance. And even then, there might be a wait list. The next thing is that people continued to ask me for my benefits, which I did not fully receive until about 6 months of employment with them, which honestly is understandable. But moving on. Just like my previous job, I continued to get yelled at by our customers for hours on end. Except this time, most of the time, they were absolutely in the right, and like I could not agree with them. All of our calls were recorded, you know, for quality purposes. I get it, but if somebody was like, oh my god, your website sucks, I have to be like, oh, sorry about that. Knowing that like I'm on the website and it also like it sucks on my end too. Like we couldn't even be like, oh, our systems are slow. Like we just had to like suck the fart out of like the company's ass. Like it ridiculous. And the company that I worked for did not really treat its customers like people. They treated them like little walking bags of money. It felt icky. I didn't like it. Like I would have endless calls from people asking for compensation because they canceled like 4 out of the 6 ports that we're supposed to dock at. And guess what? They received nothing. They paid full price for a service and they did not even give them what they wanted. And what more? That's how they cut their costs. They would save money on port fees. Like, I'm telling you, these calls were endless. I remember a call where this woman was on board with her daughter who had like a food allergy, and normally with that you're supposed to like note it beforehand. So it was noted on her reservation, it was noted everything. She got offered a dessert by the staff and she asked the chef multiple times like, oh, my daughter has this allergy, is this something that she's able to eat? And each time, you know, the chef kind of brushed her off and was like, yeah, like your daughter can eat this, like it'll be fine, whatever. Obviously, since I'm telling you this story, it was not fine. She had to be escorted to the emergency room on board, and I want you to guess how much the ER on board cost this woman. Do you have a guess yet? Are you guessing? $16,000 is what that woman had to pay. $16,000. $16,000 on something that like could have been easily avoided. And this woman was a saint, dude. Like this woman willingly paid that amount, and she was very clear with the fact that she understood that accidents happen. All she wanted was an apology. And guess what? They did not give her that. I feel like hearing that unfold was really the last straw. Because yes, I was being paid good money, but also it just felt so icky. And honestly, there's so much more that I could say. I could spend like another 60 years trying to relay all of that information to you guys, but I think it's pretty obvious that working in places like this took a really big hit on like my mental health, and it was extremely tough. But that does bring us to the next topic, mental health. Chapter 2, the big sad imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and more. Now, what was the big sad comprised of? The big sad was comprised of 30% guilt, 20% isolation, then we have 25% loss of freedom, and then 25% imposter syndrome. I felt like a giant baby. And I feel like several people would have their criticisms, but to be honest, I don't want to be someone who profits at the expense of others. But my imposter syndrome really set in when people who knew how much I made, or like people who would hear that I work from home, they would tell me that they would love a job like that. And it just kind of really made me question everything, because it made me feel icky. It made me feel like I was trapped in a cycle of being like repulsed for the company that I worked for, but also having like a taste of financial stability, and it really took a big toll on my mental health. It made me want to stop putting time into things, and I also guess that mixed with the fact that I didn't really have any time to myself, I could not really process it. So what did I do? It was really simple actually. I followed a 4-step plan that really helped me shake free of all the guilt I was feeling. At least for a moment. The plan was as follows. Step 1, I quit my job. Kind of lied to you, it's not planned, sorry. I just couldn't take it anymore. My roommate and I made an agreement. They would take on my bills if I found a part-time job and put more times into things that I loved, which is what I'm doing now, but it didn't really come easy. And I know what you're thinking. I should be so relieved and happy that I quit my job and somebody was paying for my bills. but absolutely not. This was me instead. So much had changed for me. I went from finally having a taste of financial independence to now having absolutely no money and having to rely on someone else. And I was also blatantly aware of the fact that even if they did not want to be at work, or if they wanted to take a day off, they couldn't. And that made me feel really awful. It still really does. Because even though it was something that they proposed, I had to watch them struggle on my behalf. But it was also just not a deviation from what I was used to in terms of independence and finances, but it was also a stark deviation from the routine that I was used to, which leads us to chapter 3 of this presentation. So for some time I had been in the midst of trying to get into the groove of a certain routine, and I feel like I finally achieved one. It definitely took a while to get there. As you can see, when I was working job number 1, I was not going to the gym since I quite literally had no time to. But then in October, I started training for job number 2, and I got a more stable routine of working and socializing. Thirsty. This is a fruit punch vitamin water, by the way. I went to Wendy's earlier. The training schedule made it easier, but it was also not really ideal because I was caring for dogs at the time, and I was really one of the only people caring for them, and they were 2 really big dogs. Hello, are we focused? Have we not been in focus this entire time? I'm gonna cry. If we have not been in focus this entire time, that seems like a deal with it later problem. A bit of a new angle here because my camera died. What was I just talking about? The training schedule made it easier, but it was also not really ideal because I was caring for the dogs for the time being, and I was really one of the only people caring for them, and I just didn't really have time off to myself. But I was able to go hang out after work if I really wanted to, which was nice. I enjoyed the routine of waking up early, making breakfast, working, and then getting off at around 5 p.m. and then just chilling for the rest of the night. And then moving into January, I was out of my training and officially working my official schedule. I had a gym routine. I was going every morning with my roommate and also tracking calories and all that good stuff. And I felt super good and productive. Then in about March, the burnout set in really quickly. I was bored of being at the gym, I hated my job, and turned to food for comfort and no longer stuck to my routine. And honestly, I haven't been able to get back on it. I'm still trying. But the loss of routine took a really big toll on my mental health because I put so much emphasis on making this my year and staying consistent, but it all fell apart. Anyways, here's a quote from somebody with a PhD, so y'all know I'm not tripping. But on a real note, I know it's my fault that the routine kind of caved in, but that's why we're here where we are, and this is our last section. So chapter number 4, trying to rebuild. First things first, right now we are in our transformation period. This is also known as my own personal healing girl era. And you might ask, what does this mean? Well, to put it simply, these are the steps and mindsets that I will be shifting towards in order to grow from a money-dependent mindset into one that allows me to be happy no matter how much money I have in my checking account. But first and foremost, we are no longer full-time. I have downgraded to a part-time job, which means that I will no longer be working full-time. And not only that, I am currently working for a company that I value and support, and best of all, our values seem to align. For now, I don't trust capitalism. Anyways, it's allowing me more time to focus on other things that I enjoy and also bring home at least some money for my bills, or to just plain contribute, which is always nice. But with that being said, we are also focusing on enrichment. That means that I'm going to be going to the gym, reading, working on photography, posting more to YouTube, anything that makes me feel good that I was not doing earlier when I didn't have the time. I also, within this process, decided that because I am focusing on enrichment, I made the decision to uninstall all of my social media apps. You've been trying to get in contact with me and I haven't been answering. That's why. Sorry. But to move on from that, I will also be doing a lot of inner work, which means that I am working on shifting my mindset on one from lack to one of abundance. And truth be told, I have everything I need to flourish, and I am grateful for it. I have a roof over my head, food on the table, and a genuine support system that is there for me even when I don't believe in myself. For me to be sad because I don't have money to buy Chick-fil-A whenever I want, like, be so fucking for real, like, it's not that It's not that deep. It's never been that deep. And just a side note, the lack of money mindset is also kind of why I've been away from YouTube for so long. At least it stopped me from trying again because I wanted my videos to be perfect. And it felt like I had to spend a lot of money to get things in order to be entertaining. But to be honest, that perfectionism is an excuse, and the reality of it is that I'm afraid of putting myself out there and failing. I really have to drive it into my own head that you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And honestly, it's been kind of hard, but I heard somewhere from another fellow creator that like perfectionism is a lazy excuse to not even try. And that really resonated with me because I feel like that's exactly what it has been. I didn't really see it as perfectionism, but like I always realized that I feel like I can't start something without the utmost best supplies, otherwise it's gonna come out bad. And then I use it for like 5 seconds and it's like, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Anyways, the last thing that I will be doing in the midst of this healing girl era is rejecting the status quo. I refuse to be well off and miserable, and I refuse to be well off at someone else's expense. I'm going to find something that I love doing, that pays the bills, and overall, I'm just trying to redefine success for myself. I refuse to settle in life, and neither should you. Prioritize happiness wherever you can, and within reason, always. But alas, in conclusion, I'm back, bitches! Anyways, thanks so much for watching this video. I'm aiming to put out new videos every Saturday or Sunday. My handles are KRuNicole on Instagram and Twitter, but again, I am not present on them at the moment. Also, I'm going to be linking the template to this PowerPoint in the description below because I thought it was super cute. But anyway, I'm gonna go try to live my life not so miserably. Subscribe, bye! Oh my goodness. That was nerve-wracking.
Damn, I don't even know how to feel. Hey, I can't even tell what's real. Yeah, I just want you to come chill. Hey, yeah, I thought that was the deal. Hey, why y'all playing these games? Yeah, why you like playing these games? Whoa, why you still playing these games? Yeah, why you keep playing these games? Yeah, I'm just still rolling up dope. Whoa, I'ma get lost in the smoke. Yeah, you getting stuck in my mind. Hey, please.